Hello, 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 everybody. It's Catherine on Friday evening. It's good to be back with you. It feels like it's been a long time since I've been here. It probably actually hasn't been all that long, but with everything that's been going on in our lives and in our worlds, it feels like a very long time. And the truth is, I've been thinking about all of you and holding you all in my heart and in my prayers these last couple of weeks. And honestly, I felt pretty depleted, and I had so many thoughts in my own mind that I didn't jump on to do a Facebook Live because I didn't have a clear idea of what I wanted to say, and I knew there were so many things on my heart. And so this afternoon, I just went for a walk with a friend and I'm back and things are settling down for the week, and I'm going to get to see my son and his girlfriend tomorrow, which is exciting. And so I'm feeling a little more refreshed. And all of a sudden, you know how things just sort of get synthesized in your head. And this idea just sort of came a little more clear to me. So I wanted to jump on and talk about anger, and particularly women and anger, and our relationship with anger. And if you saw the name of this, it's like, please get angry already, right? Like, so the reason I'm sort of settling on anger, because, I'm sure you've all been feeling such a wide range of emotions over these last couple of weeks. But when things come to me in threes, it gets my attention. And I've had my own experience having to deal with some of my family members this week and set some boundaries and really stand in my truth and respond in ways that were not easy for me to respond to with some of my siblings. And I had to sit in my own anger and process that until I could get to a place where I could really respond to them from the place in my heart where I love them deeply, despite, despite the fact that we're clearly in some very polarized places right now in terms of our worldview and the eyes that we're seeing through as everything has been going on. So the anger was coming up for me. And I've also had a couple of conversations with clients in the last couple of days about anger. And it seems to me that when I've had conversations with women about anger, they always start something like this. I know I shouldn't be feeling this, right? I'm trying not to feel angry. I know I shouldn't be feeling angry. And then it almost becomes looking for permission. Is it okay for me to feel angry? And I'm like, yes, finally, we got to the anger. Like, to me, it's like such a beautiful breakthrough when we finally get to the anger, because we push it down and we push it down and we push it down and we push it down. Paula, you just said something about, one of your daughters not acknowledging feeling angry until she was 16. Well, good for her. Some of us don't feel it until we're 56. So she's kind of ahead of the game, because we've gotten so many messages from our families, right? From our culture. It's not okay to be angry. And this is, I think, generally across the board, but I think it weighs, it's a message that's given more strongly to females. In fact, I think sometimes the only emotion men are permitted to have is anger, right? Some they get, that's kind of like their emotion that they can claim, and women don't have access to that emotion. So even if you are angry, you sort of need to swallow it. You need to suppress it. You certainly can't show it or can't speak it. There's certainly lots of language around that, which I don't even like to say because it sort of makes my insides, kind of coil. But, the words bitchy and are you on the rag, or, oh, you must be PMSing, or, anytime any little irritation or anger shows, it always must be because, we're somewhere in our cycle, or we're, years ago, I don't know if this word is still considered to be, a put down, but, back in the day when I was marching a lot, it was those damn feminists, right? We were always so angry. Well, guess what? There were reasons, as there are reasons for people who are protesting now to be angry. But, the message for us then was that good girls or nice girls knew their place. They never got angry. We may have been punished or blamed or shamed when we did try to express some anger, even express it appropriately, not in a rage or whatever. I know for me, and this is probably still true, when I'm angry, I cry, right? So it's this weird juxtaposition of sort of the anger and the emotions, the tears that are coming, which has never quite made sense to me, but I think it's just the intensity of the emotion that I'm feeling that causes the tears to come. The other thing is we may have experienced parents, caretakers, sometimes brothers or sisters. I know one of my brothers, God rest his soul, my brother Ed, who struggled with mental illness and, had so many diagnoses over the years. I won't even go there. But, there were times when he could get pretty out of control, and that was pretty scary. And I know I've certainly spoken to many of you who grew up with either someone with mental illness or just a rageaholic, somebody maybe who was really scary and frightening when they drank too much. So when we've had an experience where this anger, became sort of rage, where people were physically hurt, were mentally hurt, were emotionally hurt, were sexually hurt, we may have made a decision on some level that we were never going to be like that, right? Like if there was feeling angry and acting out in anger were thought to be the same thing. So we wouldn't even allow ourselves to feel angry because we certainly didn't ever want to be like that person, or we never wanted to rage in that way, or we never wanted to hurt anyone else. And so instead of being taught how to appropriately express anger, I don't know how many of us were, I certainly wasn't, we just stuff it down, right? And then it gets, it's like, I describe this in many ways that most of you who know me or who have worked with me, and I have a variety of colorful, ways of expressing this, but, probably the cleanest way is to say it's like, turning the heat up under the pressure cooker. I also like to say it's like, you can only shove so much shit in the septic tank before the thing starts to leak, right? So we can only suppress and push down and dismiss and try to hide anger for so long, because the fact is, just like every other emotion, anger is an energy, right? If you're familiar with, whether it's the map of consciousness or, the emotional guidance scale, that on one end are very heavy, dense energies like, depression and despair and shame, right? And powerlessness. And anger is not at the very bottom because at least it has some energy to it, right? When we get really heavy and dense, there's not even any energy, there's not even any movement there. So anger is a little higher up on the scale. And then all the way up at the top, we have joy and appreciation and gratitude, right? And excitement and freedom and love and, right? The higher vibrating emotions. So anger is, probably about 2/3 of the way down the list, if you will, or on the continuum. But it is simply chemistry in the body. And we've been, as I alluded to before, we've been told for so long that anger is bad or that we shouldn't express our anger. But the truth is that every emotion is energy in motion. It's a chemistry in the body. It's a compound chemistry in the body that gives us information, right? When we feel a certain feeling, when we have a certain chemistry running through our body, it basically tells us how far out of alignment we are with the truth of who we are as divine beings. Abraham Hicks talks about this in slightly different language, but when we are connected with source, right? When we are aligned with our true nature as, divine essential beings, and where it, vibrating in gratitude and appreciation and joy and love and freedom, right? We feel that excitement. We feel those high vibrating energies. So the same is true as we begin to move through the continuum of emotions and get further and further away from the truth of who we are. And anger is along that continuum. It is simply just information telling us, oh, something is out of alignment here. It may be a thought we're having in our own mind. It may be something that's happening in our environment. It may be something that's happening in the world, but it's simply information. And when we, Paul, when we begin to recognize, oh, anger, just like every other emotion, is neither good nor bad. It's simply information for us to recognize that something is not right. Then that collapses all of that negative, all the negative connotations around anger and how we shouldn't express it. And, especially women shouldn't express it. And it's bitchy and it's not ladylike. And oh my gosh, we could go on and on with that, right? But when we recognize, oh, this is an energy, there's a chemistry running through my body right now, and it doesn't feel good, right? It just allows us to know that we are in a circumstance, creating chemistry in our body that is sort of off balance somehow. And again, that allows us to be a little more objective in our understanding of it. It doesn't always mean it makes it easy to speak to. It doesn't make it easy to address what we're feeling in that particular situation. In my case this week, just with a couple of my brothers and some things that were said in regards to, what's going on with the protests. And, then it got into politics, and let's not even go there. And, it's difficult. I love my brothers. Right. And the two who I was really struggling this week, one is the one who's directly, I have 6 brothers, by the way. Well, I had 6 brothers. My brother Ed has since passed. But so, and I'm the 7th of 8. So the brother immediately above me and the brother just below me, but actually 7 years below me, were the two who I've sort of been having some struggle with this week. And we have for years sort of had a silent agreement, if you will, that we weren't going to talk about certain things. And, both of my brothers are much more conservative than I am. Their political views are different. My one brother in particular, around the time that my mother passed away, became involved with, a very sort of evangelical Christian lifestyle. And, so we have some differences. And while I was feeling anger, I had to give myself time to respond to them. I did some tapping, allowed myself to process that so that I really could remember how much I love them, right? Because in this divisiveness that we are feeling on so many different levels, it was my intention and desire not to let the divisiveness separate me from the love that I feel for my brothers. And so I went a little bit astray there, but that's been my struggle this week with the people who I've been talking to about it. They were both talking about past relationships where really bad things happened in those relationships. And they are certainly, I don't even want to say they have a right. I mean, that doesn't even make sense to me. But it makes perfect sense that they would be feeling anger. And it's a healthy thing for them to finally be feeling the anger, right? To come out of the numbness, to come out of the fear, to come out of the terror, to come out of the fight or flight response, to come out of the post-traumatic stress response, and finally get in touch with the anger for the ways in which they've been spoken to, in which they've been violated, in which they've been terrorized. And, you know, what I see a lot in my practice and just in life is that when women don't acknowledge that anger and it stays pushed down and in the shadow, because it's energy and energy doesn't disappear, it still has an effect. You can't push it down far enough or squish it small enough or build enough defenses in front of it or gates around it to keep that energy from poisoning your system in some way. And so, you know, high anxiety, PTSD, depression, relationships with food or alcohol or drugs, low self-esteem, self-loathing, right? These are all different ways that women feel the effects of suppressing their righteous anger. All of these are ways, or dissociation, all of these are ways of disconnecting from the anger. Again, because of the fear that it's not okay for me to express my anger, the belief that it's not okay for me to express my anger, that I think some women are terrified that if they finally let that dam break open, that they would just be raging and they would become like the person who was the rageaholic or the abuser in their lives. And the thought of that terrifies them. And so they try to hold all of the anger in. So I'm not sure what else I want to say about that, except that we have to let the anger bubble up to the surface, just as we are seeing now on a macro level, right? Both in our country and in the world, the anger of 400 years of people being enslaved and holding that anger in, and the frustration and the sense of powerlessness and the, you know, the suppression and the degradation. It has got to come to the surface at some point to be healed, to be revealed first and acknowledged and healed. And it's no different on a societal level than it is on an individual level. Yeah, I think that's probably where, so I would invite you to check in with yourself in a, you know, like get real with yourself, where your relationship with anger is. Have you suppressed anger? Are you struggling with mental, emotional, physical thoughts, behaviors, self-loathing, right? We talk relationship with food, alcohol, shopping. Like, are there places in your life where you have taken on thoughts or behaviors that are not serving you as a way to deal with unexpressed anger? And I'm going to invite you to do something. If the answer is yes, and if you're a woman on this planet, I don't know how the answer could be anything but yes, I would invite you to do some writing about that. And I don't even want to say journaling, because journaling almost sounds too, I don't know, like whitewashed or too neat, right? Oh, I'm going to journal. No. Throw up on the page. Like, this is the conversation I was having with a client yesterday. Like, just spew it. Just throw it up on the page. Whatever it is that's bubbling up in you, just get it out of you. And whether you write it in the form of a letter to someone, or whether you write it in the form of a love letter to yourself and just say, I'm going to let myself get this poison, this toxin out of my body because it's poisoning me. Because once you can tell yourself the truth, write it down, read it over, let yourself rage, let yourself cry, let yourself pound the pillow or dance it out or whatever the hell you want to do to move the energy through your body. Not only okay to feel your anger, it's sort of required. It's necessary, just as it is for you to feel every other feeling across the continuum, right? Anger should not be separated out in any way. And if you don't express it, the heavy, dense chemistry stays in your body and literally begins to wear down your organs and your cells. And so you're doing yourself such a disservice not to give yourself full permission to express your anger. It doesn't have to be expressed in the way that perhaps people in your life expressed it, that was hurtful and terrifying and traumatizing. If that was your experience, and if that is why you hold your anger back, why you won't even let yourself feel your anger, why you eat it away or drink it away or shop it away or sex it away or whatever way you get away from your anger, right? Give yourself permission to begin to feel it. It's not going to kill you. It may be unpleasant. It may be uncomfortable. But I have seen women, and I've worked with women who have held their anger and their pain in for so long that it has literally collapsed their entire bodies, so that they've ended up in wheelchairs or with all kinds of autoimmune disease. And when they've been able to begin to process not just the anger, but obviously some other feelings and emotions and out of their body, then they've begun to be able to heal. So the times we're in are a catalyst for all sorts of feelings, right? Ever since, the beginning of the COVID situation, and it now is just layer upon layer upon layer. And so you may find yourself being triggered more easily. Be gentle with yourself. Be compassionate with yourself. Do not be the one who demonizes you for the feelings that you're having. Do not be the one who tells yourself it's bad or it's stupid or it's not okay, right? For me to feel what I'm feeling. Because every part of you, every aspect of you, all the younger aspects of your personality who were shamed or blamed or terrorized, right, or abused in some way, need you to stand up for them. So don't become the next person who takes your anger out on yourself. Take a breath. Drop into your heart if you can. Give yourself permission to feel and know that it's okay. Let your younger parts know that you're safe. And feel your feelings, whatever they are these days, because everything is potent, everything is heightened. Alrighty, I think that's where I'm going to leave it. Now, you know what I'm going to do? I feel like I need to shift the energy for a minute before we go. Kimberly Logan, this is for you, sweetie. My sound sister. And Paula, too, you're a sound sister. Just allow the sound and the frequencies of my sweet little tingshaws to move through your energy body, your emotional body. And just break up energy that may be stuck or blocked. Just take a breath and feel that sound and vibration settle in. Have a beautiful start to your weekend. It should be a beautiful, beautiful weekend. So enjoy, and I will see you again soon. All right, all love.